Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We're broadcasting from the UN Climate Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan. I'm Amy Goodman. The International Criminal Court has just issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Galant for crimes against humanity and war crimes committed during Israel's assault on Gaza. In a statement, the ICC said the Israeli leaders had, quote, intentionally and knowingly deprived the civilian population in Gaza of objects indispensable to their survival, including food, water, and medicine and medical supplies, as well as fuel and electricity. The ICC also issued an arrest warrant for Hamas military commander Mohammed Deif, though Israel's military claims it killed him in a July airstrike. Here in the United States, 19 senators Wednesday voted against sending Israel more offensive weapons over Israel's genocidal war on Gaza and its gross human rights violations. Though the joint resolutions of disapproval introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders failed to pass, it was the largest such rebuke of U.S. policy of unconditional military support for Israel. We'll have more on the Senate vote after headlines. The vote came as Israel continues its slaughter in Gaza, killing at least 88 Palestinians over the past day in attacks on Beit Lahia and the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood of Gaza City. Israeli forces are continuing to attack the occupied West Bank with deadly raids in Jenin, as well as assaults in Hebron, Ramallah, and elsewhere. Illegal Jewish settlers on Wednesday attacked the Palestinian town of Al-Masra, Al-Qibleya, near Ramallah, setting cars ablaze. This is Hilda Sanduka, a Palestinian mother who survived the attack.
We were afraid and terrified. My daughters started to scream and cry. Thank God that they only burnt the vehicles. They could have set fire inside the house while we were sleeping. We are far away from the downtown. If something happens here, they may not help us. Thank God neighbors helped out.
Meanwhile, Syria state media reports Israeli attacks killed 36 people in Palmyra. At least 9 people were killed by Israel in the Lebanese city of Tyre. Hezbollah's leader, Naim Qassem, says he's reviewed a U.S.-led ceasefire proposal and told negotiators the group rejects language allowing Israel to breach Lebanese sovereignty by attacking within its borders. At the UN Security Council in New York, the U.S. Wednesday vetoed its 4th ceasefire resolution since Israel began its war on Gaza over 18 months ago. The 14 other members of the UN Security Council voted in favor. China's UN ambassador Fu Hong slammed the U.S. veto.
The U.S.'s long use of the veto has dashed the hopes of the people of Gaza for survival, pushing them further into darkness and desperation. I said during the Council's debate on Monday that every moment will be recorded in history and will be judged by history.
Palestine's deputy UN envoy Majid Bamia also addressed the UN Security Council, condemning the U.S. veto, for which he said there is no justification.
There is no right to mass killing of civilians. There is no right to starve an entire civilian population. There is no right to forcibly displace a people. And there is no right to annexation. This is what Israel is doing in Gaza. These are its war objectives. This is what the absence of a ceasefire is allowing it to continue doing.
This ceasefire resolution was introduced after 13 months of Israel's war on Gaza. Ukraine's Air Force says Russia has used an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time in an attack this morning on the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The missile was reportedly launched from Russia's Astrakhan region near the Caspian Sea, part of a wave of missile attacks overnight that killed at least 3 people and wounded 22 others. Meanwhile, Russia said its air defense system shot down a pair of long-range Storm Shadow missiles fired by Ukraine. It's the first time British weapons have been used by Ukraine in an attack on Russian soil, coming a day after Ukraine fired U.S.-made ATACMS into Russia for the first time. Here at the COP29 Climate Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan, divisions remain deep as a draft of a climate finance deal was met with overwhelming disapproval. Among the major issues is the absence of a firm number in the draft text. Poorer nations bearing the brunt of the climate crisis say at least $1.3 trillion a year is needed. We'll have the latest later in the broadcast. On Wednesday, delegates from Ukraine and Palestine shared the devastating impact of war on the climate. Ukraine's Environment Minister, Svitlana Grinchuk, says Russia's invasion has come at a cost of $71 billion in environmental destruction.
The war already impacted 3 million hectares of Ukrainian forests. Due to the ongoing forest fires caused by Russian military actions, the greenhouse gas absorption potential of Ukrainian forest has decreased by 1.7 million tons of CO2. Nature knows no borders, so it will have negative impact on the neighbor countries and on food supply chain around the world.
Haitian authorities say 28 suspected gang members were killed Tuesday when armed vigilantes joined state security forces to thwart an attack on an upscale suburb of Port-au-Prince. The bodies of the alleged gang members were decapitated and burned in the streets. It's part of an escalating wave of violence that's spread across Haiti's capital, where the International Organization for Migration reports some 20,000 people have been displaced from their homes over the weekend. This is the UN's Ulrika Richardson.
We have seen over the past few days really increased in terms of killings and lynching on part of the armed gangs. We have increasing and very steep humanitarian needs. This is already people who live, many populations who live under very, very tough living conditions. And the situation by day is deteriorating.
On Tuesday, the medical aid charity Doctors Without Borders said it suspended most of its operations in Port-au-Prince following threats by Haitian police and an attack on one of its ambulances. Brazil and China agreed to, quote, elevate their global strategic partnership as the two countries signed 37 trade and development deals Wednesday during Chinese President Xi Jinping's state visit in Brasilia. This is the Brazilian President, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
We advocate the reform of global governance and a more democratic, fair, equitable, and environmentally sustainable international system. In a world plagued by armed conflicts and geopolitical tensions, China and Brazil put peace, diplomacy, and dialogue first.
In other news from Brazil, 5 people were arrested, including an advisor to former far-right President Jair Bolsonaro, over an alleged plot to assassinate then-President-elect Lula in 2022. In Greece, thousands of workers poured onto the streets of major cities as part of a 24-hour general strike that brought the shipping industry, schools, and other industries to a halt Wednesday. Public sector unions are demanding a 10% pay increase amidst a worsening housing and cost of living crisis.
We demand collective conventions, higher wages, and overall a policy that aims to cover people's basic needs and not boost the profits of big capital.
President-elect Donald Trump has chosen Matthew Whitaker to be U.S. ambassador to NATO. Whitaker was acting attorney general during Trump's first term after Trump forced Jeff Sessions to resign. During his brief tenure, Whitaker sparred with Democratic lawmakers over the constitutionality of his appointment and for repeatedly refusing to answer questions during congressional hearings. Whitaker does not have a foreign affairs background. In 2018, The Washington Post reported Whitaker was paid more than $1.2 million to lead a right-wing charity for 3 years that was funded by dark money. In more transition news, Trump will reportedly name Russ Vought, one of the authors of Project 2025, to return as head of the Office of Management and Budget. The U.S. House is expected to vote again today on what's been dubbed the nonprofit killer bill, H.R. 9495, which could hand Trump the power to effectively shut down any nonprofit by labeling it a terrorist-supporting organization. And the Justice Department has requested a federal court order Google to sell its Chrome web browser to combat Google's internet search monopoly. The request from the DOJ and a group of states comes after August's landmark ruling that Google violated antitrust laws. The move could reshape how information is accessed and shared online. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We're broadcasting from the UN Climate Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan. I'm Amy Goodman here with Democracy Now!'s Nermeen Sheikh.